For those who don't know, Lee was born in Korea and adopted as a baby to the United States. The book title, let me correct myself, is in praise of late wonder, new and selected poems. The book opens with a series of prose poems which are enormously moving because they describe the yearning to know who your birth parents are, to know basically who you are. And the trip is in vain. Halfway through these poems, Lee, the poet, feels whole, feels I'm whole, I don't need to know, I'm still me. But it doesn't work, doesn't work. It's a yearning that can't be simply dismissed. And there's a poem in the middle about an adoptee who hurls himself out of 14 stories. And that falling man is an illustration of the yearning. Lee's poems are poems of passionate empathy. So let's give him a warm welcome. Lee Herrick.
Could we have a hand for that amazing group of musicians? I could listen to that all day.
Thank you, Bob.
That was beautiful, beautiful. And thank you, Richard, very much for the kind introduction. And it's so nice to see the literary magazines and the presses, so I hope you all can take a moment to stop by. And thank you to Pegasus Books. And of course, everyone who puts this on, and Poetry Flash, and the one and only, I just like to ask people to applaud for Joyce Jenkins. Could we give Joyce Jenkins a hand? Just makes me feel good. So as Richard said, my new book has a lot of prose poems about my adoption in it, so I'm going to read some of those, and maybe an older poem, but I'm going to try to stay mostly into this new section. Mother Clouds. If my dead first parents are clouds, floating over their countries and drifting into others, I am a cloud too, in the shape of a moon, tree, half moon, mangled heart. The World Meteorological Association tells us that clouds often form or grow from other clouds, called mother clouds. There are two kinds of mother clouds. One, where a part of a cloud may develop and more or less pronounced extensions may form. And two, where the whole or a large part of a cloud may undergo complete internal transformation, changing from one into another. And so my body, my being, my seemingly birth parentless self is a cloud too. And this is why I float. Even mountains and rocks change form and mutate, but I've always felt most at home near the water and looking up into the sky, where most any day I'll see at least a few clouds. A cloud is a hydrometeor made of minute particles of water and ice. sometimes with particles of fumes, smoke, or dust. I imagine my birth parents had some particles of fumes, smoke, or dust. I am fumes, smoke, or dust then too. These short pieces are just going to read them without a whole lot of explanation. This is called Idea. Idea. A friend told me once that being adopted feels like you were never born at all. I sat in my recliner at home in Fresno and thought about what she said. It makes sense because I don't know the day I was born or the exact place, city, hospital, living room, or field. If I was never born, it might explain why I sometimes feel more like an idea than a person. What I mean to say is, it took me a long time to feel what scholars have called being human, to feel, to lose, to dream. So I'm going to read a few of the poems. I think of them as more traditional poems. Acclamation. My first language was the ocean. It sounded like my first mother's body. Wave, storm, vanish. I love what wind does to the trees. I want nature to move me like that. My name is a song. In it, there are horses fed by a man who says, I feel American when I kill a row of ants and say they asked for it. We are this many miles from desire. We are immigrant turned imperialist. I love what wind does to the bay. Wave to me. Smile at me like you know my name, like you love the ocean too, or at least the way I glisten in the moonlight. So let's see. I'm going to read. Let's see. Not sure how to explain this one yet, so I'll just read it. It's called Adoption. Adoption. Adoption is a wildfire, glass lake, steep mountain. Adopt, adapt, adaptation, adoption, adopted, adoptee, adulation, adoration, adult, adept, adopter, adoptive, adopt a pet, adopt a textbook, readopt, Hollywood distortion, Iron Man, Spider-Man, Superman, Annie, The Jerk, Punky Brewster, and Margot, Edith, and Agnes from Despicable Me. Meme, memory, magically, mystery, who we miss, who we magic, who breathe deep so like this. To remember is to become wholly functional again, to join the group again, to rebody, to memoir, to recreate, recollect, resist, recover, reform. To write is to form again, establish again, to exist again. Adoption is to mind again, verse again, to build, store, create, and live again. Okay. Thank you. I think I'll read one older one and then finish with a new one or two. I think I'm losing my Fresno credibility if I even try to make a comment about this heat. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's fucking hot. You're from Fresno. Um, okay. This was a poem about crosswords that turned into a poem about people and things like that. Flight. The in-flight magazine crossword partially done, a corner begun here, scratched out answers there, one set of answers in pencil, another in the green. And the woman with the green ballpoint knew the all-time hit king is Rose, and the Siem Reap treasure is Angkor Wat. And the woman, perhaps en route to hold her dying mother's hand in Seattle, forgot about death for 10 minutes while remembering her husband's Cincinnati Reds hat while gardening after the diagnosis. Her handwriting was so clean. Maybe she was a surgeon, maybe a painter. No, what painter wouldn't know 17 down? Diego's love, 5 letters. In a rush, her dying mother's voice came back to her, or maybe she was a Chinese adoptee, and her first mother's imagined voice said, "Wo ai ni." At 30,000 feet, you focus on 33 across. Asian American classic. The woman. When a stranger in the window seat sees the clue, watches me write in W, and she says, "Warrior." And for a moment you forget it is your favorite memoir, and she reminds you of lilies or roses, Van Gogh or stems with thorns, art galleries and romantic cities where she is headed, but you should not go. And the flight attendant grazes my shoulder. The crossword squares, the letters, the chairs and aisles seem so tight in flight, but there is nothing here but room, really. Maybe the next passenger will know what I do not. 64 down, 5 letters, purpose. And why do we remember what we do? We know the buzz of Dickinson's fly and the number of years in Marquez's solitude, but some things we will never know, as it should be. Why the body sometimes rumbles like a plane hurtling over Southern Oregon. How exactly we fall in love, or if Frida and Maxine Hong Kingston would have loved the same kind of tea. All right, and then one more. Oh, thank you. I'm gonna just riff for 20 seconds or so and say, I don't know if anybody else felt it, but for me, and I know there's some incredible poets here and maybe writers and creative folks, but if this ever happens to you, Marcia De La O, the amazing Marcia De La O, like I was reading that poem and the best breeze. Did you feel that? I was like trying to feel it in the middle of reading the poem. That was amazing. I read this on the great Avacha on the radio program right over there. Yeah, Avacha's over there. And somebody listened to the show and sent me an email saying, it made me think the world is not perfect, but there are perfect moments, you know? And so I kind of liked that. So this is the last poem. It's called Stars. Stars. Every now and then, I remember that I was born on the other side of the earth, and it makes sense that I love looking up at the stars. It's such a childish thing to do, like climbing trees, stomping in puddles, and building forts out of blankets. But there's some strange pull and a simple satisfaction from looking at the stars after all these years. I wonder if a man my age in Korea has the same love. I wonder how the stars relate to a gravitational likelihood that I'll tell my daughter someday about the time in our backyard, swimming in the moonlight, and the world seemed perfect. Or the time I dropped her off at her middle school in Fresno, and before I drove off, she motioned for me to stop, fogged up the window with her breath, and wrote with her finger, "I love you, Dad," with a heart, and the world seemed perfect. That's what it is about the stars. Because they're so many millions of miles away and so still, the immediate chaos or confusion of our lives seems so minor. Even in the daylight, they're right there, imperceptible, but there. Something like faith or belief or the wild idea that a deep kind of joy is there for you, even if you have no idea where it is. All right, thank you.